In the age of social media, the selfie is more than a photo. It's proof you were there. But for a growing number of people, chasing the most extreme selfie became the last thing they ever did. By 2025, hundreds have reportedly died while taking selfies, with estimates nearing 500 victims since 2014. One database alone tracked 314 incidents causing 425 deaths by mid-2024, with India leading the world in these tragic and often dumb fatalities. These weren't freak accidents. They were moments where a photo mattered more than survival. From cliffs and mountaintops to moving trains and loaded guns, these are the dumbest selfie deaths ever recorded. Case 1. The peak of stupidity. Our first case takes us to the breathtaking 18,332-foot-high Mount Nama in China's Sichuan province. On September 25, 2025, a 31-year-old hiker, identified only by his surname, Hong, was climbing the snow-covered peak with a group. For Hong, this was his first time on this majestic mountain, and he was determined to capture the perfect photo to prove he had conquered it. But his desire for a dramatic shot would lead to a fatal mistake. As the group neared the summit, they were navigating a steep, icy slope where safety ropes and ice axes were essential. These are not optional accessories. They are the literal lifelines that separate a successful climb from a deadly fall. But Hong, wanting more freedom to pose for his pictures, made a decision that baffled his fellow hikers. He unclipped his safety rope. Without the lifeline connecting him to the guide rope, and without his ice axe in hand, he began to set up his shot. According to reports from Chinese media outlet Red Star News, as he was trying to stand and adjust his position, he tripped over his own crampons, the metal spikes attached to his boots for traction. The slip was instantaneous and catastrophic. A video of the incident shows Hong losing his footing and immediately beginning to slide down the steep, snow-covered mountainside. He slid for over 650 feet. That's more than 200 meters, disappearing over the edge of a ravine as his horrified fellow hikers watched, powerless to help. The video captures their screams of terror as their companion vanishes into the abyss. Local authorities launched a rescue mission, but the fall was not survivable. Hong's body was later recovered. To make matters worse, investigators from the Kangding Municipal Education and Sports Bureau discovered that Hong and his group had not even registered their climb or obtained the required permits to be on the mountain. He was an unauthorized climber who ignored basic safety protocols on a dangerous, high-altitude peak, all for a photo. His death is a chilling example of how quickly a beautiful adventure can turn deadly when you unhook from reality for the sake of a selfie. Case 2. The high-voltage photo. In April 2014, just weeks before her 18th birthday, 17-year-old Zenia Ignatieva from St. Petersburg, Russia, was an amateur photographer with a passion for capturing dramatic, high-risk photos. She loved the thrill of urban exploration and wanted to take a selfie that would wow her friends. She chose her location, a railway bridge in the Krasnogvardeyski district. Her plan was to climb to the top, 30 feet above the ground, and take a photo of herself against the backdrop of the tracks at night. With her friend Oksana Zhankova waiting below, Zenia began her ascent. She successfully climbed the metal structure and, for a moment, she had her shot. But as she was preparing to take the selfie, she lost her balance. In a desperate, split-second panic, she reached out to grab onto something to stop her fall. The only thing within her reach was a thick, black cable. What she didn't know, or chose to ignore, was that it was a high-voltage power line, carrying 1,500 volts of electricity. The moment her hand touched the cable, her body was racked with a massive electrical charge. She was electrocuted instantly. The shock killed her before she even hit the ground. Her lifeless body then fell from the bridge, landing on the concrete below, Her friend Oksana, who had been watching from the ground, was horrified. She rushed to Zenia's side, but it was too late. The girl who had climbed the bridge for a thrilling photo was dead. Police were called to the scene and quickly pieced together what had happened. It was a clear-cut case of a selfie gone horribly wrong. Zenia's desire for a spectacular photo, one that would stand out on social media, led her to ignore the obvious dangers of a railway bridge. She paid for that photo with her life, becoming another statistic in the growing list of people killed by their own quest for online validation. Her last photo, found on her camera, was a haunting image of her on top of the bridge, just moments before her fatal fall. Case 3. The gun. Our next case comes from Mexico City, where a 21-year-old man's attempt to look tough for a Facebook photo ended in the most predictable way possible. In August 2014, Oscar Otero Aguilar was drinking with 2 friends at a party. Described by those who knew him as selfie-obsessed, Oscar had a history of posting photos of himself with cars, motorcycles, and attractive women. On this night, he decided he needed to up the ante. He wanted a photo that would really make an impression. He borrowed a .45 caliber pistol from one of his friends. His idea was to take a selfie with the gun pointed at his own head, a classic tough guy pose. As he was waving the gun around, trying to get the perfect angle for his photo, he failed to consider one crucial detail. The gun was loaded. According to police, he didn't know the weapon was loaded and was juggling the gun and his phone when he accidentally pulled the trigger. The gun went off, and the bullet struck him directly in the head. His friends, who had been drinking with him, were in a state of shock. A neighbor heard the gunshot and immediately called the police. When they arrived, they found Oscar on the ground with a fatal head wound. He was still alive, but barely. He was rushed to the hospital but died on the way. Investigators at the scene confirmed that the death was accidental, a result of pure negligence. Oscar Otero Aguilar had been so focused on crafting the perfect image for his social media profile that he had treated a deadly weapon like a toy. His final photo, the one he was trying to take when he shot himself, was never posted. Instead, his Facebook page became a memorial, a grim testament to a young man who died for a selfie. His friends were questioned by police, but no charges were filed, as it was determined to be a tragic accident caused by Oscar's own recklessness. So far, we've seen a hiker unclip his safety rope for a photo and plunge 200 meters, a teenager electrocuted on a railway bridge, and a man accidentally shoot himself in the head, all in the name of a selfie. The stupidity is almost unbelievable. But what happens when the obsession with social media follows you into the driver's seat? Stick around, because after the break, we're heading to North Carolina, where a woman's final Facebook post was a selfie just seconds before a fatal crash. Case 4. The Last Happy Song. On the morning of April 24, 2014, 32-year-old Courtney Ann Sanford was driving on the Business 85 highway in High Point, North Carolina. She was having a good day. She was listening to the Pharrell Williams song, Happy, a song that was a global phenomenon at the time. The song made her so happy, in fact, that she felt the need to share that happiness with her friends on Facebook. And she decided to do it while she was driving. At 8:33 a.m., while cruising down the highway, Courtney took out her phone, snapped a selfie, and posted a status update to her Facebook page. It read, "The happy song makes me happy." But her focus wasn't on the road, it was on her phone. Investigators later found that she had been posting several selfies during her drive. This final post, however, would be her last. Seconds after she hit post, Courtney's car drifted across the median and into the path of oncoming traffic. She crashed head-on into a large commercial truck. The impact was devastating. Courtney was killed instantly. The driver of the truck was unharmed, but the scene was a tragic reminder of the dangers of distracted driving. When police arrived, They found her car a wreck, and her phone still open to Facebook. The timing was chilling. The Facebook post, a declaration of her happiness, had been made at the exact moment she was causing the crash that would end her life. A police lieutenant on the scene called it a sad case, a stark illustration of the dangers of using a phone while driving. Courtney Sanford's final act was to tell the world how happy she was, a message that became a tragic, public epitaph for a life cut short by a selfie. Her death became a national news story, a cautionary tale about the deadly consequences of distracted driving in the age of social media. Case 5. The Fatal Family Portrait. Cabo da Roca in Portugal is a place of breathtaking beauty. As the westernmost point of mainland Europe, its rugged cliffs offer stunning views of the Atlantic Ocean. It's a popular spot for tourists to take photos, but it's also a place of immense danger. On August 9, 2014, a Polish couple, a 31-year-old woman and a 30-year-old man, learned this lesson in the most tragic way possible, all while their 2 young children looked on. The family was on vacation, enjoying the scenic coastline. With their 2 children, aged 5 and 6, in tow, they decided to take a family photo on the edge of the famous cliffs. Despite signs and safety barriers warning visitors to stay away from the edge, the couple crossed the barrier to get a more dramatic shot. They wanted a selfie that would capture the sheer scale of the cliffs and the ocean below. As their children watched, the couple posed for the photo, inching closer and closer to the precipice. In a horrifying moment, they lost their footing and slipped. They fell hundreds of feet from the cliff, their bodies crashing against the rocks below. Their 2 young children were left standing on the cliff, having just witnessed their parents plunge to their deaths. The other tourists who saw the incident were in shock and immediately called for help. Emergency services arrived to a heartbreaking scene. The children were inconsolable and had to be taken into the care of Polish diplomats. The bodies of their parents were recovered the next day, as the rough seas and failing light made an immediate recovery impossible. The couple had ignored clear safety warnings and sacrificed their lives for a photo, leaving their children orphaned in a foreign country. It was a selfish act with devastating consequences, a permanent stain on a place of natural beauty. The story made international headlines, serving as a grim reminder of the dark side of selfie culture. Case 6. The Last Excursion. Sri Lanka's Poti Menaka train journey is world famous for its stunning views, winding through lush green tea plantations and over historic bridges. For many tourists, leaning out of the open doorways of the train to take photos is a quintessential part of the experience. But on February 19, 2025, a 53-year-old Russian tourist named Olga Perminova took this trend to a fatal extreme. Olga, a grandmother from Saratov, was traveling with a tour group and was clearly enjoying the scenic ride. As the train made its way between the Badula and Haliela railway stations, she decided she wanted to capture a dramatic selfie. She began to lean out of the train's footboard, hanging her body out of the carriage to get the perfect shot of herself against the backdrop of the rolling hills. Photos taken just before the accident show her in a pink dress, smiling as she leans precariously out of the moving train. But the picturesque landscape hid a deadly obstacle. As Olga was posing for her photo, her head struck a protruding rock along the side of the tracks. The impact was brutal. She was knocked from the train, falling to the ground as the train continued on its journey. She suffered severe head injuries and was rushed to Badula Teaching Hospital. Despite the efforts of the medical staff, her injuries were too severe. Olga Perminova died in the hospital, another victim of a selfie gone wrong. Russian diplomats had to make arrangements to have her body sent back to her family. The incident was a grim reminder that even in the most beautiful of places, danger can be just a few inches away. Leaning out of a moving train for a photo is a risk that is never worth taking, a lesson Olga learned in the most tragic way possible. Her death prompted renewed calls for safety measures on Sri Lanka's tourist trains, but for Olga, it was too late. The cases we've examined are not isolated incidents. They are part of a disturbing global trend. A 2018 study published in the Journal of Family Medicine and Primary Care found that between 2011 and 2017, there were 259 selfie-related deaths worldwide. The study found that the mean age of the victims was 22.94 years, and 72.5% of the victims were male. The leading causes of death were drowning, transport accidents, and falls. The study also found that the number of selfie deaths is on the rise, with 3 deaths reported in 2011, 2 in 2013, 13 in 2014, 50 in 2015, 98 in 2016, and 93 in 2017. India has the unfortunate distinction of being the country with the highest number of selfie deaths, with 159 reported cases. This is followed by Russia with 16 deaths, the United States with 14, and Pakistan with 11. The high number of selfie deaths in India has led to the creation of no-selfie zones in some tourist areas. These are areas that have been identified as being particularly dangerous for taking selfies, such as cliffs, railway tracks, and water bodies. From the highest peaks to the busiest highways, the stories we've seen today paint a grim picture of a world where the pursuit of the perfect selfie has become a deadly obsession. These weren't just freak accidents. They were the direct result of people making incredibly dumb decisions, prioritizing a fleeting moment of online validation over their own lives. They ignored warnings, bypassed safety barriers, and treated deadly weapons like props, all for a photo that, in the end, they would never get to see. What's the most ridiculous selfie you've ever seen someone take? Let us know in the comments below, and if you want to see more stories of fatal foolishness, make sure to like this video and subscribe to Final Moments. Join us next time as we explore the dumbest ways people have died on vacation. Until then, stay safe and remember, no selfie is worth your life.